In 1986, Pretty in Pink gave an entire generation its definitive romantic fantasy. Molly Ringwald as Andy Walsh, the girl from the wrong side of town who believed in herself. Andrew McCarthy as Blaine, the rich kid who saw past the social divide and chose love anyway. The chemistry felt real. The romance felt earned. The ending felt like everything a teenager needed to believe was possible. Director Howard Deutch just gave an interview ahead of the film's 40th anniversary, and what he described about the actual dynamic between his two leads completely reframes every scene in the movie. Here is something the movie never tells you. Molly Ringwald almost did not get the role of Andy Walsh. The studio wanted to meet other actresses. They offered up a list of alternatives, including the lead from Flashdance, and consistently pushed back against casting Ringwald despite the fact that John Hughes had written the character for her specifically. Deutch described having to fight for her, going back to Hughes repeatedly and saying, "You wrote this for Molly. This character is her." And when Deutch finally went to Ringwald directly and told her she had to do the movie, her response was immediate and telling. She said, "They don't want me," not false modesty, not fishing for reassurance. A teenager who had been through enough of the industry to know exactly what studio resistance felt like, Deutch told her he wanted her. She asked if she could pick her own clothes. He said yes. And one of the most iconic wardrobes in 80s cinema was born from a negotiation between a director and a 16-year-old who needed to feel some control in a situation where she had very little. And then there was Andrew McCarthy. Deutch confirmed that when McCarthy arrived on set, the man Molly Ringwald had personally fought to get cast as her love interest, he was not that nice to her. His words, "Let that land for a moment." She advocated for him. She wanted him specifically. And his initial response to being on set with her was coldness. The reasons for that coldness became clearer years later. McCarthy has been open about struggling with alcohol addiction during that period of his career. Jon Cryer, who played his rival in the film and famously clashed with him on set, said in 2024 that at the time he perceived McCarthy as haughty and remote. But had he known how hard McCarthy was working just to keep it together, he might have been more understanding, a young man fighting addiction on the set of a massive studio film. A teenage girl who had to fight just to be cast in a role written for her. Both of them being asked to project the most effortless, romantic chemistry imaginable. That is not a love story. That is survival. To understand what Ringwald and McCarthy were navigating, you have to understand what the John Hughes machine actually was. Hughes wrote and produced at a pace that is almost incomprehensible in retrospect. 16 Candles and The Breakfast Club in 1985, Pretty in Pink and Ferris Bueller's Day Off in 1986, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, and Some Kind of Wonderful in 1987. This was a factory, and the raw material was young actors who were famous enough to sell tickets, but not powerful enough to demand conditions that protected them. Ringwald was 16 during filming. McCarthy was 23. The studio had tried to replace her before the camera rolled, and the two of them were expected to generate a romantic fantasy that would define a generation, regardless of what was actually happening between them off camera. The Hughes machine did not need real chemistry. It needed the appearance of chemistry, and it got it because these were talented professionals doing their jobs under enormous pressure. The audience got the fantasy. The actors got the reality. Pretty in Pink is still a great film. The performances are genuine. The emotion is real. Molly Ringwald's Andy Walsh remains one of the most authentic teenage protagonists in cinema history. None of that changes what it cost to make it. The most romantic scene of 1986 was filmed by a 16-year-old who almost did not get cast and a 23-year-old who was struggling to survive, neither of them feeling what the audience saw on screen. That is not a criticism of the film. That is the whole truth of how it was made.